God, I can't wait to be out of this jersey. Grossi Posse Packer Nation. Welcome to an episode of Packcast, the podcast where you don't have to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I'm your host, Tom. Yeah, last week in predictions was a big oof. Grossi, and today we're going to be breaking down all the games that make up the Week 4 slate in the NFL. Last week, I went a good old 9-7 as I took some risks and they did not work, meaning that I am 28-20 and 2,774th on the list in the Pick'em League. Meanwhile, you got two people hanging on in the top two, going 38-10. Yeah, Jerome and Anderson. So a big shout out and thank you to the both of you for participating, and congratulations. May the luck ever be in your favor for Week 4. So starting off with the Thursday night classic, you got the Battle of the Kitty Cats. You got the Jacksonville Jaguars taking on the Kitty Goes Meow Cincinnati Bengals. The Jaguars, well, they actually made a highlight, so that was really good. And no, I'm not talking about the flea flicker, which resulted in interception. I'm talking about the 109-yard run back after a missed 68-yard field goal against the Arizona Cardinals. They'll be holding on to that one for a while. The Jaguars are obviously not a very good football team. They're one of the worst in the NFL, taking on the Bengals, who have surprised many people, sitting at 2-1, just knocking off the Pittsburgh Steelers in a pretty shocking fashion. Jamar Chase, who had the dropsies all during the preseason, has come back. Joe Burrow, after a 3-interception performance, came back with a strong performance against the Steelers, and all of a sudden, people are talking about the Bengals, but actually not in a bad way. This game is going to be interesting. You got the former number one in Joe Burrow taking on the current number one overall pick in Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence definitely has nicer hair, but I do not think the Jaguars have a nicer team. So because of that, I'm going to be going with the Cincinnati Bengals to take this one. Heading into our next game, you got the Tennessee Titans taking on the New Jersey Jets. The Titans winning an ugly game against the Indianapolis Colts. The Indianapolis Colts, who basically didn't have anyone on their team. The Titans are like, oh no, we got this. Now the Titans might actually be without their top two wide receivers. Julio Jones going through some injuries. A.J. Brown getting injured. But they're playing the Jets. The Jets, who got absolutely lambasted by the Denver Broncos last week. It really doesn't matter who's playing or not for the Tennessee Titans. The Titans, I still think, are going to win this game. I think they could start their practice squad players, and they could still have a really good chance of knocking off the Jets. So yeah, I'm going to go with the Titans here, and it's not going to be particularly close. Following that, you got a battle in the NFC North between the Detroit Lions and the Chicago Bears. The Lions putting up a fight against the Baltimore Ravens, coming back with a strong second half, and then losing to a 66-yard field goal because the Lions going to be the Lions. The Bears getting their ass kicked, handed to them, buried against the Cleveland Browns, who had 9 sacks. Not a great start for Justin Fields, but it wasn't really all his fault. It's more the offensive line and the crappy play calling by Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy saying, listen, everything's on the table. Who could start for Week 4? It could be Andy Dalton. It could be Nick Foles. And Nick Foles is like, please, God, no. And it could be Justin Fields. This game being played at Soldier Field. It's going to be an ugly game, I would assume. I would assume if Justin Fields is going to start, it's going to be a little bit better than it was last week. But I'm actually going to pick the Detroit Lions to win this game just because the Bears looked that bad. I do not believe in their offensive line. And while the secondary is definitely struggling over with the Lions, I think the amount of fight and tenacity they showed last week is pushing me over the edge to pick this kitty to beat the Bears. Following that, you got the Indianapolis Colts and Carson Wentz's 2 sprained ankles taking on the Miami Dolphins. The Colts, like I said, Quentin Nelson getting carted off. Jonathan Taylor got a little bit going, but the Colts really didn't look so good. The Dolphins, they took it into overtime with the Raiders. Jacoby Brissett, with Tua being out and put on IR. Jacoby did pretty well for all things considered. The Dolphins have a good defense, and they're kind of rocking and rolling right now. The Dolphins, they have a good defense, and they have some good skill players. Will Fuller returning to the lineup? That's always a big plus. Maybe he'll go off potentially. The Colts are supposed to be so much better than they actually are right now. Will they be able to put it together this week? I think it's going to be a challenge. And it's being played in Miami. I'm going to be going with the aquatic mammals, the Miami Dolphins this week. Though, I wouldn't be surprised if the Colts have an upset. Then you got the Cleveland Browns taking on the Minnesota Purple Incarnations of Satan Vikings. The Vikings doing the world a favor and beating down the Seahawks. The only better thing they could have done is just lost. Both of them lost. Just a tie. Actually, no, both of them losing. How does that happen in the NFL? I don't know, but I wish it did happen. The Browns, as we talked about, dominating the Bears, and I'm looking for the Browns to dominate another NFC North team this week. Kirk Cousins has been looking pretty good. I got to give credit where credit is due. He's going to be going up against a real tough defense in the Browns with a pretty damn good pass rush. So look for the Browns to constantly get after Kirk Cousins, and I think the Browns are going to be able to get this W. Then in a tale of two disappointing teams, you got the Washington football team taking on the Atlanta Falcons. Washington's defense is looking like hot diddly garbage this season. Not looking good. They showed some fight, and they came back against the Bills for a hot second when it was 21-0, and then the Bills were like, okay, sweetie, you're going to bed now. And then the Falcons, they got their first win over the Giants. Good job, guys. You did it. Yeah, both these teams are underperforming, even though I think the Falcons are actually right where they're supposed to be. Washington, I think, has a better team, and they have a better core of people together. The Falcons, man, I mean, they won 17-14 against the Giants, so they're not really doing a whole lot. However, I'm going to say the offense comes alive a little bit more this week, and I'm actually going to pick the Falcons to win a little bit of an upset here. Though, again, this is probably just going to be an ugly football game, and Washington probably will win. But I'm going to go with Matt Ryan and the Falcons because for some reason I have Matt Ryan on my fantasy team. So I kind of need you to do well, Matt. Then you got the Houston Texans taking on the Buffalo Bills. The Texans playing an ugly game against the Carolina Panthers with General Davis Mills starting out there. And the Bills, well, Josh Allen and their offense came alive against the Washington football team. This is not going to be a good game. I think the Bills should absolutely murder the Texans, and Davis Mills is going to be like, why do I have the neck of a draft? Does that have anything to do with anything? No, but then again, the Texans really don't have anything to do with football a whole lot when it comes to successful teams. Was that harsh? Yeah, but warranted. Then you got the New Jersey Giants stinking it up against the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints have bouncing back last week with a dominant win. So they just go dominance, get dominated. Dominance, will they get dominated by the Giants this week? No, because the Giants, they're still fighting their way out of a paper bag. So because of that, the Saints, I just picked them in every facet of this game. The Saquon Barkley was better at least last week for the Giants, but yeah, the Saints, you should win this game. And if you're the first loss to the Giants, I'm just going to giggle a little bit. Then you got the last place team in the AFC West, the Kansas City Chiefs, taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. What's going on, Chiefs? Oh, I know. Your defense is terrible. And plus, you're not playing mistake-free football, and Patrick Mahomes is turning the ball over. And because of that, it's not a winning combination. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, not really looking so good, also fumbling last week. Taking on the Eagles, who got slapped around on Monday night by the Cowboys. This is a kind of a must-win game as much as it can be for Week 4 for both teams. More so for the Chiefs. They signed Josh Gordon to their practice squad, so I don't think we're going to really be seeing any of him this week. But I think the Chiefs bounce back a little bit against the Eagles. If the Cowboys can score 41 on the Eagles, I think the Chiefs can do the same and look for this to be a bounce-back week. Following that, you got a real intriguing matchup between the Carolina Panthers and the Dallas Cowboys. The Panthers beaten up on the Texans last week. They have a really good defense. However, losing J.C. Horn with a broken foot and Christian McCaffrey is going to be out for at least some time. That's going to be definitely rough. The Cowboys, as we just talked about, Defense came alive a bit. Trayvon Diggs looking really good. Offense came alive. Ezekiel Elliott coming back and be like, I remember how to play football because, of course, I was going against him in fantasy. Pollard's doing well. Dak is playing good football. This should be a fun game. You have a good offense against a good defense. However, I'm going to give the slight nod to the Dallas Cowboys because they are playing at home. Their offense did look explosive last week with their defense picking it up a little bit. I think the Panthers without CMC, it's going to be a little bit rough. And so because of that, I'm going to pick the Cowboys. Then in the first of two NFC West divisional matchups, you got the Seattle Seahawks taking on the 49ers. The Seahawks getting the pants slapped off of them by the Vikings last week, while the 49ers left 37 seconds on the clock, and that was just too much for Aaron Rodgers. Yes, I'm still gloating about it. This should be a damn good game. Every single time that these two teams meet, it's almost always a classic. These two teams hate each other. It's going to be smash mouth football. The 49ers secondary is hurting, and the one good thing about Russell Wilson and the Seahawks is that the offense is playing well. Chris Carson picking it up last week and playing well, but then again, the Seahawks defense, they suck too. This might be a very high-scoring game, and I'm actually going to give the nod to the Seahawks here because I believe in their offense's ability to put up points more than I believe in Jimmy Garoppolo right now and their lack of running backs. Look for Deebo Samuel to have a good game at least, and probably Kittle, but I'm actually going to go with the Seahawks here to beat the 49ers, and then the 49ers can be the ones crying again. Then you got Grandpa Cardinal and the Arizona Cardinals taking on Matthew Stafford and the LA Rams. The Cardinals, they beat the Jaguars. Kyler Murray's turned the ball over a little bit too much, but then he's also like throwing for a cajillion yards and lots of touchdowns, and he looks really good. The offense is not really the problem here. The defense definitely looks a little suspect, though. The Rams, right now, I think they're the best team in football. They beat the reigning defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, looking real good. Offense is clicking. Matthew Stafford is looking amazing, finding a deep threat in Deshaun Jackson. Cooper Kupp is tearing up secondaries, and their defense is nothing to bat your eyes at either. I think the Rams do take this game because they are looking damn good. I know it's a divisional game, so, you know, you can always have some weird things in there, but the Rams look like the overall better team. Following that, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers heading on to Lambeau Field to take on the Green Bay Packers. The Steelers get knocked off by Kitty Goes Meow last week. TJ Watt, we'll see if he returns this week. It looks like the receivers are going to be healthy. Najee Harris had a good game in the passing game, had a bunch of receptions and over 100 yards, but Big Ben looks fracking terrible. My man can't move in the pocket. And considering the Packers' pass rush was actually pretty good last week, I have a lot of faith in the Packers right now. The Packers' offensive line was able to hold back a good pass rush by the 49ers, and that was without David Bakhtiari and Elton Jenkins. If TJ Watt is not playing, I really like the Packers' chances, but even if TJ Watt is playing, I think that they showed they can handle a guy like Bosa. They can handle a guy similar like TJ Watt. So because of that, I think the Packers will be able to move it a bit on this defense. I mean, look what the Bengals were able to do, and I say the Packers do get a win at home against the Steelers. Then you got the Baltimore Ravens, who won off a miracle, taking on the undefeated Denver Broncos. A lot of trash talk about the Broncos and that they haven't played a single team who has won a game, which is just factually correct. Getting their first taste of real competition, as we talked about on GPS. Ravens starting to get healthy in all the right places, especially in wide receiver. Hopefully these wide receivers will not drop the balls like Hollywood Brown will. Going to Mile High. The Broncos, they have a really good defense. Teddy Bridgewater playing well. I like the Broncos to do well in this game, but I think the Ravens, even though they went toe-to-toe with the Lions and almost lost, I'm going to give the nod to the Ravens. I think Lamar Jackson's going to make some magic happen, but if the Broncos win, good God, Brandon Perna is going to throw a celebration. Adeling our way into the Sunday night game, you got the homecoming. Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers returning to Foxborough to take on the New England Patriots. And oh boy, is the NFL, they're hamming it up. They are. Watch for a power outage to happen during halftime for when the Patriots are sucking. The Patriots did not play good football. They did not look good last week at all versus the Saints. Mac Jones making mistakes, just didn't look like a good balanced football team. The Buccaneers suffered their first loss of the season, getting beat by the Rams. Look for the Buccaneers, who just signed Richard Sherman, to tighten it up a little bit. on that Patriots offense. I imagine both guys, Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, really want to win this football game. I think the atmosphere is going to be electric, but I do think the Buccaneers are going to beat up on the Patriots. And finally, you got an AFC West divisional matchup on Monday Night Football. You got the undefeated Raiders taking on the Chargers. The Chargers pulling off a win. They almost chargered it up, but they pulled off a win against the Kansas City Chiefs, so they're flying sky high right now. The Raiders going into their second overtime game of the season, just edging out the Miami Dolphins. The Raiders, will they have Josh Jacobs back? That's going to be a big old question. If they have Josh Jacobs back, I think this gets even closer of a game. This should be a very good football game. And as we talked about on GPS, this is most likely going to be a Raiders home game here. The Chargers, I like their team. Justin Herbert looked real good last week. Defense was able to not completely blow the game. So I'm actually going to pick the Chargers here to win it. However, if the Raiders win, oh boy, and the Broncos lose, the Raiders will be in sole possession of first place in the AFC West. Arg. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. How do you feel about these games? How do you feel about them shaping up? Let me know. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy, all social media, see down below. Check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Spotify, and of course YouTube. And a big shout and thank you to all the patrons over patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy and the YouTube members. But thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.